Welcome everybody, so I am back and bringing you guys a brand new movie review. This is going to be for 300, so I already filmed this review, and apparently the audio got jacked, so rather than trying to re-sync the audio and everything, I just figured I would reshoot it and shoot it a little bit better than what I had done before. This movie stars Gerard Butler as King Leonidas, Lena Headey, which we all know from Game of Thrones fame, Michael Fassbender as one of the Spartan soldiers that is along the ride with Leonidas. This movie pretty much takes place in Spartan or ancient Greek mythology. This is about the Battle of Thermopylae, which is this big narrow passageway in Thermopylae, Greece, and this is where they pretty much need to hold in order to allow for the Spartans to have enough time to gain some more reinforcements, so that way if the Persian army does attempt to come across when the Spartans are battling the Persians, that, you know, they'll be able to defend Athens from being destroyed and pretty much sunk to the ground by the Persian Empire. Now the Persian Empire is being led by Xerxes, which he is this big brooding sort of godlike figure within the Persian Empire. Everybody sort of worships him. He has all the women, he has all the power, he has all the money, and so nobody pretty much is trying to, stand against him. He is conquering pretty much all the lands in the ancient Greek Empire, pretty much taking over things. And so he brings over a Persian messenger, which is in the Spartacus series. I forget his name, but he's a really, really good actor. And King Leonidas does not take kindly to that. He's like, you bring the heads of conquered kings to my city step. You assault my queen. You threaten my people with slavery and death. So he kicks him down a giant well, and this pretty much starts the war between the 300, or the Battle of the 300, which everybody knows from the comic books. This is based off the comic books, so it's a little bit more stylized than what happened in real life. Not only did this battle take place in sort of a narrow passageway in ancient Greece, it also takes place on the sea, which you kind of get a little bit of a glimpse of, and would later get another sequel film that kind of takes place during that time period with 300 Rise of an Empire, which I have yet to review, and I really do want to review that at some point just because that's also one of my favorite movies. You see, all the Spartans, they're kind of standing on side this cliffside. Leonidas has his shield up, and you see rain and lightning sort of pounding on them, so they're kind of cheering the fall of the Persian Empire. The Persian Empire, after hearing that King Leonidas will not take his offer to kind of surrender and his women and children to be slaves, he pretty much sets out to destroy King Leonidas. Xerxes absolutely hates Leonidas and what he stands for. Leonidas stands for democracy and freedom, and that is not something that Xerxes really wants. He wants complete and utter control over the ancient empire. So the Persians end up invading a small town nearby. One of the little boys kind of falls down and gives kind of a speech that's similar to that of Newt in Aliens. They came from the blackness and everything, that sort of speech. That was all taken directly from Aliens, which I also want to review for my channel at some point. King Leonidas and the Spartan 300, who just kind of left Sparta, find a little boy. King Leonidas tries to console the kid as he's dying before his eyes, and this kind of triggers his response to act. They see a gigantic tree with a bunch of bodies strewn up on it, and there's body parts pretty much hanging everywhere, which is horrific and horrifying to see, but this was all in the comic books, and there is a little bit of changes to the accuracy of the historical elements within this film, but it's all done in context of the story. You also see at a young age King Leonidas trained to become a Spartan warrior. All these Spartan warriors are trained as a young child to become Spartan kings. King Leonidas is one of those kings. Also, he was taken at birth and pretty much subjugated to, if he was not fit for, service, he would be tossed into this giant chasm, which is horrifying to know that they kind of did this stuff because, you'd figure that they would try and at least utilize the ones that they couldn't for some purpose, but they didn't. All of these Spartan kids had to be sort of fit and healthy, otherwise they would be discarded like they were nothing. King Leonidas fights a this sort of dire wolf, or this kind of like black wolf that is got red eyes, and it's kind of a demon looking wolf that he eventually conquers, and this leads to King Leonidas being a man. He eventually is consoled by Lena Headey, his current queen, and she tells him that, even though the oracles which he eventually goes to for advice on whether or not to go and actually fight against the Persians who are invading, they tell him no, and they say that if he does actually go to war with them, that this will lead to an even greater loss of life between the citizens of Athens as well as the Spartans. And King Leonidas is like, fuck this, I'm going to do this anyway, and so eventually he leads a Spartan army, not before he has sex with Lena Headey's character, Queen Gorgo. She consoles him, telling him that, he has to do whatever he feels is right for his people, and that it's only up to him what goes on and what happens because he is the rightful ruler of Sparta. And so this leads to him actually sacrificing himself in the 300 for his empire. Not to mention there is a side plot between Lena Headey and this politician. He's a crummy, scummy politician that's actually working with the Persian Empire. He's trying to weasel his way in so that way he can overthrow the Spartans from within. They eventually find this out when Lena Headey confronts him pretty much about the fact that he's working with Xerxes. She cuts open a bag that he carries on his side, and a bunch of Persian money just kind of spills out and everything. That's when all of the elders kind of realize, oh shit, this guy's actually working against us, and he's not actually part of our empire, he's actually a traitor. And this guy actually, sexually assaulted Lena Headey's character within this film, forcing himself upon her one night when King Leonidas is fighting for the empire and fighting for their kingdom. You know, there's a lot of really cool moments in this. There's a lot of really cool action sequences, one of which takes place where one of the Spartan warriors takes a spear and kind of chucks it at the rhinoceros, and it kind of crashes to the ground and skids, and then you kind of see it skid close towards camera frame. There's an action sequence where there's a bunch of immortals that attack them, and these immortals are big, giant, hulking, sort of brooding individuals, and they attack King Leonidas and his squad. They're throwing shields, they're cutting them, and they're not seeming to be cut down. Eventually, King Leonidas, as well as a group of Spartan soldiers, actually cut down a few of these immortals. There's a bunch of other, like, really cool action sequences. You know, while this movie does use a lot of green screen and blue screen within this film, they do use a lot of practical sets that they built on stage, especially for, you know, sort of the sets that involve King Leonidas and 300 walking through the fields and everything. That was all done for real. One of these other side plots involves Ephialtes. Ephialtes is the deformed creature that looks kind of similar to Quasimodo. He goes to King Leonidas and he's like, I can fight, I can help you guys out in battle. And King Leonidas is talking about the phalanx and how every single one of his soldiers, you know, kind of operate within a unit, and that if one of their units is weak, that it kind of affects the rest of them. Ephialtes is like, you are wrong, King Leonidas, that, you know, I can definitely help, and that he vows to prove him wrong, which eventually leads to Ephialtes sort of betraying King Leonidas and giving away sort of his battle strategy to Xerxes, and a secret passageway that leads to the destruction of the Spartan Empire. And that's when you see a bunch of the arrows kind of being shot out towards King Leonidas, and he's like, my queen, and then gives that really awesome speech towards the end where he's just shot by a bunch of arrows and stuff. There's also other quotes such as, we'll fight in the shade, when a bunch of flaming arrows are shot at them, and the Spartans kind of like pull up their shields and everything, and arrows are kind of just bouncing off of them, and it's kind of cool and funny to watch. And they're kind of all laughing and joking about it, and they're like, what are you laughing at? And he's like, yeah, we'll fight in the shade and everything. Like, this movie is just awesome. Like I said before, you know, this movie gets a lot of flack for using green and blue screen, but they use a lot of that to their advantage, where they build these sets and they extend them with, you know, CGI and stuff later on, or they create, you know, atmospheric clouds and stuff, or they create gigantic armies and stuff after this. And it's kind of like the Lord of the Rings, where they're kind of just extending it to make it look a little bit bigger than it is. A lot of these quotes that you will remember, such as this is Sparta and stuff, that I was quoting even in school when I probably shouldn't be, because I saw this movie at a really young age. Like, I was in high school when this came out, and everybody that had seen this movie was pretty much talking about it. Like, this thing just blew everybody away, including myself. Like, this is the stuff that, you know, filmmaking should be. You got really awesome action sequences, you got really awesome visual effects, you got really awesome score by sort of the sound team and everything. You got a really good director by Zack Snyder, who kind of knew how to handle this comic book and adapt it correctly. I even have the art book, which kind of shows you how they kind of created it, which I think is really, really well done. You know, everything about this movie just screams awesome action and awesome visual effects. You know, this is stuff that's revolutionary even to this day. You know, Zack Snyder really pioneered the sort of the slow motion sort of action sequences where they kind of slow it down and speed it up and stuff, and that's kind of the stuff that you see in even the Spartacus TV shows and everything. I just think that if you're a filmmaker, that you should definitely check this out. I got my copy on Blu-ray for like $5, even though I did buy the DVD at full price when this came out, and I watched it non-stop as a kid. Like, this is one of those movies that I come back to, and like I said before in countless other videos, the mark of a really good movie is one that you can kind of watch on repeat over and over again. I really do like 300 Rise of an Empire, just because it's sort of like a prequel and sequel type of thing, where it kind of explains what happened towards the sea battles, which you don't really get to see in this film. But, you know, some of the behind-the-scenes documentaries of this is also really great, kind of on the making and how they kind of formed the Spartans to kind of give them that really good workout session that kind of built their bodies to be what they look like. And a lot of people think that they're CGI, when in fact Gerard Butler really went on a training regimen to kind of look the way that he does in this film. So I really think that all the actors did a really good job. There's not a single actor within this film that doesn't do a really good job of what they're doing within this movie. They actually use practical effects and some CG, and they kind of mix it together, whereas a lot of, you know, modern day filmmakers would kind of use it as a crutch, and I really don't like that. I think that the mark of a good movie is one that combines both CG and practical effects to its advantage. And so, you know, that's why I'll give, you know, 300 an A+. I really do think that if you're interested in filmmaking, if you're interested in really good stories, you should definitely check this out. This is definitely one of those movies that is a hero's journey type of film, because, you know, the oracles are kind of holding back King Leonidas, but he kind of just does it anyway. He answers the call, and he has a couple inciting incidences that lead towards King Leonidas actually going to Thermopylae and actually having that big giant battle that you see. That is infamous, especially that slow motion sequence where you see all the Spartans together fighting and everything. Like, there's just really awesome action in this, and so that's why I'm going to give 300 an A+. I know this movie isn't entirely historically accurate, but if you watch some of the behind the scenes, you'll kind of see some of the stuff that they actually did put in that was historically accurate to the time. So as always, guys, rate, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.